Okay, so I'm going to put all my disclaimers up front. I'm very new to API, and I'm kind of new to Data Studio. In fact, discussions in previous meetings is what prompted me to look into this, and whatever I'm showing you now, I learned since we last met in February. So let me present. Let's see if I can get the right screen. Okay. So hopefully you see my CMS management reports.
I do.
Okay. So Three Rivers Legal Services is a G Suite shop. We've used Google G Suite for a number of years. We do use Word and all the Office products for normal documents and spreadsheets, but this is what you're looking at is an internal website, a G Suite site that we've created, and we have all the permissions set up in organizational units and whatnot. So managers can see this site, regular staff can't. And this site has links to some Google Data Studio reports. And I'm sort of going to back into this. I'm going to show you what the end product is, and then we're going to go back and talk about how we got there. So a typical report might be about open cases, and it's literally loading that Google Data report for us right now. It's embedded on this.
Cool.
And it may look a little small, so I'm going to pop it out so you can get a better picture of it. While it loads this. And the normal users, because I'm the creator, I have this edit and share icons, but there are other managers, they just see the report. They don't see any of this other things. But this is current open reports for our thing. And it's kind of cool because you can drill down. So you can see family is a big number. But if I click on family, I can drill down and get a breakdown on all the family stuff. And if I could drill down another level, I can see what the intended level of service is for that group of cases and so on. And you can go back up. But I've also put these filters up there so a manager can say, I only want to see my office. So now we're only looking at the Gainesville office. And these filters are sort of interactive. So if I want to see advocates, these are the advocates in the Gainesville office. So, you know, I can pick any one of those people, eliminate them or see them. This person's a family law attorney, so that's why you get that. Or you can go back and I can do the same thing for grants. Some, you know, a manager can pick a grant. I want to see all the cases for just this grant. So you can create all these things. The total changes as you change these things.
Nice.
You know, up in that. So it's all very cool. So
Alan, I'm sorry, could I just ask you, how do your metric for the intended level of service, what did y'all use for that?
There's that level of service is a field in LegalServer that you can set when you open a case. So the intent, you know, we were supposed to decide that when we accept the case.
Got it. So you're not changing them midstream generally. That's
you can be updated. You know, we have that ability to update them. But you know, if you look here, you can see I have a whole bunch of them that somebody opened the case but never said what it is. So we'll probably have a discussion about that amongst the managers. It's not a required field, but maybe we need to make that a required field.
This drill down is awesome. I feel like it's such a more likely way that program staff will explore data than like adjusting filters, finding the different. This is awesome.
Right. Yeah. And typically, you know, the managers, you know, they can go pull up a regular report and see a god awful list or one of those charts, or, you know, what do you call those? The crosstabs and whatnot. So it's always on one level, but this, and you can set all how far down you want and all this stuff. So we'll talk about that. So in Google Data Studio, we'll just go to them. So this is a product. So if you have the G Suite for business, we have a nonprofit license, but it's essentially the same as a business license. There's smaller amount of individual user storage, but we have shared drives, we have massive storage. So this comes with it. And typically, you know, if you're going to create a report, you get a blank report, and then you have to add some data to, you have to get the data somewhere. So they have a bunch of ways to get data. You can build a connector. Let's see, I'll put some pages. So there's this whole thing about building your own connector where you basically write some JavaScript in Data Studio that does the API call to LegalServer. And, you know, I started looking at, you know, you write your get statements and the whole bit. I was like, geez, do I have to learn JavaScript? Or it's actually Google script. They have it's a variation on JavaScript. I was like, well, no, I don't want to do that. But I saw right away, I saw, oh, you can use a Google Sheet. And my first simple test was, well, I'll just download a Excel spreadsheet report, put it in my Google Sheet and see how it works. That's not automated, but you could do that. Then I, you know, in Google Sheets, you can write these macros. You can write a Google script in Google Sheets that does essentially the same thing a connector you would write. It's write JavaScript, write your get statement, parse all your column headers to get your data that you want, so on. I was like, oh, geez, do I want to do that? You know, I started searching everything, and I actually found this add-on tool that you can get for Google Sheets that is an API connector in your Google Sheets. And, you know, it's a service. You have to pay for it. It turns out a pro edition of this is only $9.95 a month, $120 a year. And you can go all the way up, even at the highest level where you have 10 users and a little more fancy stuff like hourly iterations and this OAuth 2.0 integrations and some fancy support. It's still only $700 and change a month. So I'm like, well, that's a no-brainer. I'd rather pay somebody else to do this for me than do it myself. So,
did you mean a year? 700 and something a year?
A year, yeah.
Yeah.
That's trivial in the greater scheme of things. So, to just show you how we do this, so I have a group of API reports that I've already created. So we'll just look at this one since we were looking at open cases. And you know, I have a special report API user and I have a regular API user that does other things. But the way this works is, of course, you know, when you create this, you get this little URL in your API. My experience is real good to check that box up here. So in your Google Sheet, the headers of the columns make more sense than whatever the crazy naming convention, because when you build a report, I change the names of the columns quite a bit to make sense to me. So here I have a spreadsheet, the blank spreadsheet, and oops, I'm sorry, the add-on. So I have this add-on now. This little pop-up will come up over here on the side, and we'll create a new connection. So if we go back to the report, we'll copy that URL. Back to my spreadsheet on the right tab. I'm just going to freaking paste that URL in there. If you wanted to, you could put the API username and password in here and just build the URL without anything. But you can do an authorization header. If I can spell authorization. Let me get my authorization. There is a cool thing where, just to make it a little more secure, you can go here and get it to convert it into a base 64. So if I just went and whatever my password was, you can create a string for me that I use in that authorization statement back over in the spreadsheet. But let me get that, because I have a string somewhere, and of course, I have to get my string. I'll move that over here so you guys don't have to see that. So I'm just pasting this string in there. If LegalServer, you guys get to OF2, you could do, you know, a fancier token there, but we're not doing that now. I'm going to have it go into this current sheet. Then you have to name it. And you run it. Take a couple minutes because it's going to get 900 and some rows here.
So I just want to point out, a couple months ago, we talked about our token authorizations available, and that's only available for the external APIs. That's not available for the reports API.
Right.
But that may change at some point.
Right. So, bam, there's all the data. And regardless of what the report looks like, it brings in every row, every field that's in that report, even if it's a hidden field. So, and, you know, I can name this thing. I can put it wherever I want. I typically put it on one of my shared drives. It's shared with our IT department. So that's there. And because it's a Google Sheet, it gets saved automatically. So if I go back here and I want to add this sheet to that report, find it. There it is. Go in, it's going to do that. I'm going to add this as my data source. You can have multiple data sources too. And saying, yeah, I want to add this report. And it does this funny thing where it tries to create a table right away based on that report. That doesn't mean it just picked for some reason. Is this matter a case? I don't care about that. So you can see over here. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go to my resources. I just put that out. So I'm going to. The odd thing when it comes in, it's named everything row whatever. So you could change these names to make them make more sense to you. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but that's essentially what you would do. Dates come in as date and time, but you can change it to just the date, so it makes more sense. An odd thing, things like, and you know, the IDs, you know, we don't want the IDs, so you can hide fields. I don't really want to use that field. Make it happen. So it kind of grays out and so on. Is this a PAA case? In LegalServer, that's a Boolean thing, but I don't know if you noticed on the actual report, it comes out as F and T, not yes or no. So if I change it to I've discovered if I change it to a Boolean field here, it can't figure it out. So if I treat it as a text field and then it's filtered on T for true or F for false, you know, so on. So, and you can add fields. So you can create calculated fields, or you can concatenate fields together and do whatever you want to manipulate these fields. You can put more than one data source in here and then blend them so that you pick whatever field is the linking field between them, and then pick fields from two different reports to build your data set that you want to use in this particular thing. So it's kind of cool. So like if you had a big time report and then you had a case report and you wanted to find what reports there's no time on or something like that, you could sort of blend those, get data from two different reports and try to figure that out. Anyway, so let's just say we're done with that. Then you want to add a chart. So you just pick what kind of chart you want. Let's pick a pie chart. Pick it, and so on. So it'd be more sense if I go back and show you the original one that we were looking at a minute ago. So this is the open case report.
And just I want to retrace the steps. So what you did is you built a report in LegalServer that gave you the data that you were after.
Right.
You gave that report some headers that made you rename the column headers to something that made sense for you.
Right.
And then you used a plugin for G Suite that lets you via API grab from LegalServer, our reports API, pull that data into a Google Sheet, which is what you're showing right there.
Right.
And then you're asking Google Studio to read that sheet.
Exactly.
And then you can make pretty pictures. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I've done a time report that maybe had 40,000 rows in it too. So you can go pretty, I'm sure there's some infinite limit, but so let's look at this report. And we'll put it in, I'll edit it. So this pie chart, so every little piece on here, if you click on it, you can see, here's the data, or I've edited it and decided what fields to come in there. It always wants a date range, so the date range, of course, is open, and these are the dimensions that I've added. So the problem code category is the top dimension. The actual legal problem code is the next dimension. Level of services, the next dimension. And you can just drag a thing over there and put a dimension. Now I've added another dimension. So if I looked at that and drilled down, the bottom of these are, and it's limited how many you can see. There's a bunch of others because that probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but you just pick your dimensions and pick your metrics. We're doing a count, open case, it's a count. And you can notice how it says a number and a percentage. You can make it just say a percentage with the number as the alternative. You can have it sort by the dimension or by the value. So let's go back. If we were at the top level, let's not do that. Let's get back in view mode. So we're back at yeah. So this is sorted by alphabetically, but I could set it up so the top one is the one with the biggest piece of pie. So you can do all kinds of styles to this too. Now, all these other things, open case is its own little chart, and it's a chart, it's a scorecard chart. So it's just putting the total number up there. That's all it's doing. These are controls, and you can add all these controls. These are, while I've put in are drop-down lists. So if I wanted to put another, just drag it out there, just put it somewhere, and it's picked a thing for me, but I can pick any other. I can change it into case status. So now that's a pull down, pick a case status and find all the cases. You just drop these on there. There's a date range control. I'll put this back in view mode. So the date range is just like you might expect. So these are open cases. So if I just want to see how many cases were opened last month, I just make the date range Apply it. 124, I can figure out who opened the most cases last month. Jessica opened 14, you know. I sort of see that summary right away. These are in alphabetical order by the, but you can change that order too. So you can do a lot of cool things. Pie charts. I have some table charts just to show you. Just
yeah, I was going to ask if you could just add one, because one of the things I played around with this a little bit. It was decent at guessing what I wanted the chart to look like. Once you get your dimensions in there, it kind of.
All right. Here's a cool one. You take the power of Google Maps, and I'll have to. We're in North Florida, so if I want to, try to zoom in here, and I have a list of closed cases. It's funny, if you just put the city as your field, Google will find the most populated version of that city and have you all over the freaking world if there's more than one Jacksonville in the world and so on. But so you have to, and I did this. This is a kind of, you can parse this stuff together. Let's see. So if I look at the data here. So it has city and state and zip code, but I created a field that concatenates those things together and then use that to map the city and state to map. So you can take data and make more useful data out of it. So this is kind of a cool thing, and you can put this on, this kind of road map, or you can make it like a satellite map or whatever. And theoretically, you could use the GIS data if you're collecting that in LegalServer. There's some caveats about if you have too many hits at the same location, it kind of won't show the true size of the, if you have an apartment complex where you have a lot of clients, it might not be as big a bubble as it really needs to be or something like that.
Yep, and we want to be, obviously you want to be careful about whose eyeballs get to see that and how granular you are, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely. You can.
I was also thinking, that API is actually fairly expensive. We pay quite a bit of money to use some of their API, Google's API, for some of the mapping, but by it being inside of Google Studio, you haven't been rate limited. Yeah, probably good to go.
So you can, embed these reports. So you have to enable it. You can get a little frame and inside your frame, or you can just do it by URL. So
that's an important thing to notice. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I did not notice that originally, and I couldn't get it embedded somewhere else. But you have to specifically enable the report that you create so that you can embed it. For instance, over on Google Sites, which is what you guys did, right, Alan?
Right, and so you copy it. Yeah, we did it by URL, because then I can make it as big or small as I want by dragging the size. And of course, you can share the report. And typically, we have a pretty locked down site. So our Google Suite is set up so you cannot share outside of our organization at most levels. We do have a few shared drives for collaboration with other, like Southern Legal Counsel is a statewide class action kind of litigator in our community. And so a few times we've collaborated with them on big cases. So we have a shared drive with them. But generally, you have to go through this massive approval process before the IT people will let you share anything outside of our organization. So even if I gave you the ability to create a report, I would not give you the ability to share it outside of the organization. So that's our lockdown control, and that's just my whole attitude about data, particularly case data, is if I put something like this on our website, you know, I wouldn't put any drill down or filtering. I would just put a picture up there, and we do that in our annual reports, but they're not dynamic. You know, they're just reports like that. So, but our managers, we just, in the last month or so, we just started using these reports, and it's gotten some good feedback from managers who want a quick look at what's going on in their office or something like that.
And Alan, I'm trying to remember, I feel like the part at which you got stuck originally, did we have any trouble with authorization? Could you just show what you had to put in that plugin?
Yeah. So, I mean, it is crazy if you wanted to without, because you can put whatever your username is, password at, you know, you could do that, and it's just in there, and you don't have to put the authorization headers in there. It seems a little inappropriate. So, but what I did is I used this little app to convert my username password into some kind of base64 encoded string. It's not as great as a token, but I'm sorry, it does make it a little more untransparent.
Right.
We've had an example of that.
Better, but we do negotiate at, you know, TLS 1.2 now, so it's not, unless you're typing that literally in your URL bar, it's not going across in clear text out into the universe, as I understand it.
And we've got some documentation about how to use the basic authentication with those examples on the API docs site, and I'll post that in chat.
Here's another cool thing is you can schedule these to run when you want them to run.
Yeah.
Instead of, you know, so I got to run every day. Since this is an open case list, I would probably have this run every night, so the next day it's current. But you know, you can have it every week or every month, and you save those trigger names. Because in Data Studio, oops, let's get back here. Let's get back to one that makes more sense. I'm sorry. You can set the frequency at which it refreshes too. And let's see. Their frequency is crazy, more frequent than you normally would do this.
This is probably where I should say again, please be gentle and nice. Like Michelle, when she said they do theirs early morning, once a day, that's really good. I mean, obviously at some point we're going to have to rate limit, and there probably will be fees beyond a certain amount of hits. In the meantime, you're just being sweet and thoughtful. Yeah. We do notice there's some people on the call right here. I know somebody's like, why is this, what's happening with this query? It's okay. I know what they're using the reports API. So when your other folks are not busy, that would be really good. And then to have it run, and also take a look at the report that you created that you're trying to pull information out of, because if you have extra junk columns in there that you don't need, the tidier you make that report, the better, you know, citizen you are.
Yeah, I mean, so this is my report, and I think I only have one hidden filter or one hidden data item. So basically, this is all I'm going to work with. And I could probably get away with total time on the case. I started out to see if that was useful, but I decided it wasn't. I have a different report that's time in the last month, and then I try to match open cases against the amount of time in the last month to see if people are neglecting cases or overworking some cases, So we're
Got
playing
it.
that concept, but.
And in case I'm not being clear, what I'm saying is you're building a report, and what Alan's doing with this plugin is automatically asking for that data. So sort of the robot is asking it to run the report, and we're talking about how the frequency of that if that's a super high frequency and it's a messy or gigantic report, that's really time consuming on the database, and it's a little harder for us to track down because we're like, what's going on with this site? And then we realized that the little robot is coming in and running this report on your behalf or as API user. So
yeah, that's one of those permissions that you maybe have to grant that the API report runner, it can run reports that take more than 10 minutes or something like that.
Something like that, yep.
So, and I did find out if you want to have a time entering your report, you got to give it permission to see everybody's time and stuff like that.
That's right. Thank you for raising that one, because we ran into that as well. If the automated report that you're pulling for the reports API, it thinks of the API user just like a person. And remember, we have this additional layer of protection that you can't run a report that includes other people's timekeeping unless the user doing that has the power to see other people's time.
Yeah.
And so the API user needs that too. Yeah.
I had to reach out to Jeff. Why doesn't this work? You could get this authentication error message. You get these little.
The same thing happened to me with Power BI. Thank you, Michael.
So it's like, got to give it all the permissions it needs, and so on. So, I mean, that's pretty much where I'm at. This API connector just made life so much easier. I don't have to write any code. It's real cheap because 150 daily requests, I doubt it. I'm not gonna be doing that. I'm not gonna run it every hour. 15 saved requests. If I get above 15 reports that I'm pulling on API, then managers will start slapping me around like, okay, already stop. But it's not that much more to sort of lose those limits. Unlimited rows, So.
Back on Data Studio, would you add a different kind of chart just for like a bar chart or something to show folks
Sure.
what that looks like?
Close this. Oh, actually, I'll pull up a report that has a bar chart. Okay.
Or anything else. I just want to show, I was hoping you could show how it sort of guesses what you want, and pretty quick to build the visualization.
This is the one where I just was playing with a minute ago with the true false. Is this a case? Oops. So we do a stack bar. Let's do that. See if it'll. And it is still looking, and I think it's probably, I have no idea why it's like that, but let's do. So there's a problem code category. So it's
nice.
Dragged over the one. If I wanted to add drill down, I just add, another, the next level on, and so you can see it's got these little arrows there. It's an interesting thing that typically they're hidden, but there's all this thing about styles. If I want that little chart header, that seems like a misnomer because I would think that would be the title of the chart, but it's really talking about those drill down controls. So if I turn that on, they show up, and I can change the sort. So right now it's it's sorting by record count, I can make it sort the other way. It's reverse sorted. I can make it, you know, in the normal thing, and you can drill down. Actually, drilling down. I'm not sure why that. Maybe it has to be a stacked bar is probably what it needs to be before drill down makes any sense. But
I think you just put the same field as the second drill down.
Oh, is that way?
I don't know if you meant to put special problem code.
Oh, you're right. I did. I'm. It's kind of that's category. Yeah, you're right. Thank you. That's the category. Where's there's special problem code? Oh, legal problem code. You guys and your crazy names. I always have to remember. Oh, it's not problem code. It's legal problem code.
Right. Right.
So now, if you put it on view, it should, you know, and it's because you can say right now I think it's defaulted to 10 bars, but you can make it wider and have more bars. You can have the legend appear on the bottom, on the side, on the top, on the left side, on the right side. So there's a lot of style for everything you put up there. You can edit the style. You can change
Will you change it to dark mode for me? I really like dark mode. Click on style there and then click the dark one. It looks cool. Wait, well, I thought it was style. Wrong place. I don't know wherever you were. I saw that one of the modes was dark mode.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things you can play with here. You can, so on. But yeah,
That's
I mean,
awesome, Alan. Do anybody have questions for Alan? Sorry to talk over you. Does anybody have questions for Alan? We're getting near the top of the hour here.
One thing about Microsoft Power BI that really frustrates me is that after I build something and then put it in Teams, for somebody in our organization just to view those reports, they have to have a pro license. They have to have a paid license to view it in Teams. Are there any limitations on like what you have to set up for other staff to view your reports in this?
All right. No, but here, let me. I'm going to pull something over here to kind of show you how permissions work in G Suite. So I'm going to sign in as the administrator here. Oops, type the right password. Do I have my caps lock on? What's going on? This is not. This is very frustrating.
Sorry to put you on the spot for an unprepared.
No.
I mean, demos are always fun.
Well, as a simple. Let's see. Oh, maybe I clicked on personal accounts. Oh, I'll have to investigate that. The way Google manages, how should I say this? Their access, you can build these what are called organizational units. So that, 3trls.org, our domain is the top level. And then I can build units. So I have a management unit, then I have a regular staff unit, then I have some specialty non-person type accounts that do some work for us. And then for any app that comes in G Suite, emails, Google Sheets, Google Data Studio, I can say which organizational units can use those. So in general, everybody can do the normal email sheets, docs, and stuff like that. But the management unit are the only people that have any access to actually, it's actually only the administrators have any access to Data Studio as far as creating, but I can say the managers can view. So I've given them view, like when I shared this thing, a thing, I gave them view permissions. I was trying to load this.
Yeah, it was pretty easy, Michelle. One that we're experimenting with internally. We just put it on a Google site, and for me, we're smaller, right? I said all staff can see it, and
Right.
There was no additional licensing or anything required.
I mean, if you have Google Analytics, this is all a Data Studio kind of thing. There's a lot of templates. If you wanted to create your own Google Analytics dashboard, you could go in Data Studio and do this the way you want. And if you want to get real good, I was thinking interesting exercise might be take some of your outreach reports and then map them against your analytics on your website. Are you getting hits for new applications after you, or are they visiting certain pages on your website that you can see? Obviously, our page about the eviction moratorium is getting a lot of hits, but we promote that an awful lot. But after we have our hurricane and we start promoting disaster relief kind of information, we might run an outreach report, create a studio that has that kind of timeline activity report that you get in Google Analytics. You might start mapping that and see how, if you get spikes that are relatively close to whenever you have some sort of push in public, media or whatever. We have our own YouTube channel, so because that's a Google product, there's a lot of templates in Data Studio to do cool things with the activity on your Google channel. There's a bunch of templates if you have Facebook page to get data and report on the activity on your Facebook page and so on. So, in Data Studio, there's a whole page of, learning and resources, obviously. But if you go to add data and you scroll down through this long list, and you can see there's a lot of other, mostly to do with marketing, already built connectors. But there's a bunch for Facebook, there's a bunch for YouTube, and so on. So there are a bunch of, so there's your Facebook ads. So if you wanted to click on that and start putting your credentials in and start running reports on your Facebook ads and things like that.
Yep, and lots of other data sources. So one of the things that we don't do natively in LegalServer, when we have some charts and graphs and that sort of thing, but one of the things we don't do is compare data versus a bunch of data that doesn't have a case. So
right.
You want to, what are all the poor people? We experimented with this a little bit using census data, but didn't go a long ways. Let's say where all the poor people are by census tract, for instance, and you have census tract in LegalServer. What we can't tell you is where there are poor people, but you had 0 cases. Because every piece of data in LegalServer is connected to a case. There's no such thing as a sort of drawing a map of things that aren't cases, because it's not connected to anything. So if you want to overlay case-related data with data that exists somewhere else in the world, this would be one way to do it. I mean, you want to track down where the data comes from, where it lives, and watch your privacy. So a former tool that Google had, I backed away from because I couldn't tell whether the data that we were producing was going to be available to everyone. Pretty clear in Data Studio, right, what the permissions look like now. So that would be a particularly good use here, is find data somewhere else to bring in and overlay case data with complex data that lives somewhere else in the world. Yeah, and there's this whole community of connectors. I talked about building a connector. They want you to share your connectors. Obviously, if you build a connector to LegalServer, you wouldn't want to put that in the universe of available connectors. Even though I think if you build a connector, because every
every report has a sort of a unique URL, the connector would have a query. It would stop and say, what's the report ID or something. And so
right. Yep, that is something we're looking
knowledge.
at to see if we can build a connector to save you from needing the in-between, needing the Google cheat sheet thing.
Yeah. But anyway, that's what I got.
Thank you so much, Alan. That was terrific.
Thank you, Alan. That was awesome.
You're welcome.
Great.
Turn off.
So Michelle, next, what's our next one going to be on?
That's a great question, Jeff. Does anyone have anything that they've been working on that they would like to show off or workshop or anything like that? I think Jeff and I kind of have a backup plan to fill in whenever we don't have somebody else, but would love to hear from other people first. Or even any ideas about, so we've done a few, we've now done like the Microsoft, connecting to like a Microsoft data visualization, a Google data visualization. I've had another one, what was the other tool called again that Lee did?
Click data.
Click data, thank you.
Click data, right.
But I mean, there's like a whole other world of integrations that we could look into too. So it's definitely not just about data visualizations. Like if there are other things you're working on or would want to learn about.
We used to, back before LegalServer changed the rules about having a lot of hyperlink text in your notes and comments, we used to have a bunch of, if you opened a case that was a landlord-tenant, you automatically got a note that had a link to the Florida statute on landlord-tenant and a link to maybe some other online publication. So if there was a way to create those links that maybe doesn't put the fear of God that you're going to link data to some malwares, link a case to some malware site, that would be pretty cool. So it's just like put the resource right on the case profile.
So I did something like that at the organization I was with before LegalServer, but it was using guided nav in an aux form. It wasn't on the profile, but it was like, here's the resources, and then it just displayed different instruction boxes depending on the problem code or the percentage of poverty, and it was just using the expressions on that.
And it would put the hyperlink in there so you could click it and open a website, pop it out.
Exactly.
And that's kind of the way we did. We basically, based on problem codes and case-specific questions, it was just a question that would just put that note in there with a hyperlink. But they turned off the way to do that. So that'd be cool. You can send me something on that offline. Check out the whole group on that. But I always thought that was, and I wouldn't mind circling back, and if you guys want to work more on the document sharing using Google Drive, I have a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. We're working. SharePoint's happening. Dropbox is being shined up. I heard a rumor that we have somebody who wants to use box.net coming down the line, but yeah, Google is on the list of things to. I
can give you a little warning about Google. So shared Google Drives is what used to be called Team Drives. They have a limit of 400,000 items, folders and/or documents. And we literally hit that earlier this week. We're suddenly don't save anything. So we had to take some aggressive action to clean up our online data storage. We pushed everything into Google Drive when we all started working from home.
Interesting. I think we may need to talk about more of that. Talk about that some more on the list.
You need to have maybe a more robust strategy about how an organization sets that up, and then how you search maybe more.
Yeah.